Righto, folks. Week 14 of your Deadlock Fight Night is coming at you. We're starting with Europe, as always. Of course, a show presented by Intel, without whom this would not be possible. And I guess we have a helping hand in it as well. I'm Mitch Leslie here with Jason Kaplan. Good to be back here with you, Jason. We're on EU this time. No 5 a.m. finishes for you. I hope you're full of vim and vigor.
I've got my coffee ready to go, but I swear, Mitch, we need you to send me a picture of the shirt you're wearing before we actually start the show, because I'm just entranced by it. I don't know what your closet looks like, but it has to have every color in the rainbow for sure.
Except green, because if I ever run a green screen, I can't wear it. You know what I mean? It actually was hard to find flower shirts for there. Never mind. You know, it's a long story. Folks, good to be back here for another week of Deadlock. I want to talk about something that we have in the works that is crazy. So crazy that I myself are not going to be a part of it, but there are some dedicated individuals here at the Deadlock Fight Night that will be. We are expanding. That's right. Much like my waistline, we are growing outward towards the Pacific region. We're going to get some coverage of the very best Deadlock teams out there in Pacific. Again, still working format and teams in, but we've got $1,000 secured for the winner prize. So that's 2 a.m. PT, which is why I'm not doing it. 6 a.m. ET, 11 a.m. UK, and so on and so forth. So I do check that out. It's awesome. We are, partnering up with that Pacific region and trying to bring coverage of competitive Deadlock to as many corners of the world as possible. So of course, huge thank you to Intel for helping us make that happen, and of course everyone in the behind the scenes at the Deadlock Fight Night for getting involved with that. It's going to be very exciting.
I'm really excited actually, because tomorrow there is a qualifier that's being organized by the region to determine which 4 teams go into the actual event. And I'm actually going to try to do some watch parties on that in the morning at like noon my time for a couple hours. But you got teams from like South Korea, teams from China, teams from Australia. I kind of have some hopes for them, Mitch. Obviously, being an Australian yourself, we never get to see Australia break through in esports, but I'm hoping maybe Deadlock could be it. I don't really recognize any of the players just yet, but that's the upside of actually going into DFN Pacific, is you're going to get a lot of names coming out that could potentially challenge the likes of the teams we have in NA and EU.
Yeah, I'm stoked to shine a light on that region. I think that's going to be awesome to see what's going on in Pacific. Obviously, Ping is in a situation that you'll have to deal with on that region. So, for the Oceania crew, they will have to deal with that, I think, in order to compete on even footing. But that, of course, is going to go on the Deadlock Fight Night YouTube channel, along with these VODs and all the VODs from the previous Deadlock Fight Night outings as well. So if you want to go back to an era, maybe when Hydra Nation was still winning everything, you can do that with our time machine there over on YouTube. Let's talk a little bit more about today, though, Jason, because we're headed back over to EU, which has been a pretty busy region. We would argue definitely one of the most competitive region in Deadlock right now. I mean, I think of the one-win bombshell tournament that just wrapped up. I think in the last couple of days that Virtus Pro were able to win that out in a 3-1 over Parivision in the finals. Now, VP awaits in our champions match for $1,000, of course, on the line, but it's one win in Parivision. 2 teams who also competed against Virtus Pro in that same tournament will have a chance to run it back if they can get past this best of 1.
Yeah, and actually in the loser bracket semifinal, one win was able to take a map off them, going 2-1, and obviously losing out on that one. But thinking back to week 11 here for DFN, one win surprised the hell out of us with their aggression and some dumb mistakes. If you can cast your mind back that far, we saw them have a really good lead up against Virtus Pro, I think known as Buff Enjoyers then, and then they tried to Zerg the patron not once, not twice, 3 times. And eventually that was enough for Buff Enjoyers to get back in the game and actually win that out and then win the whole thing. So for them, I'm really curious to see if they have the unbridled aggression yet again today.
Yeah, I mean, again, in the group stages of that very tournament, VP were 4-3 in terms of map. So really competitive, which is what we'd love to see in Europe. It's always felt like a pretty deep region. So we're going to be discussing that today, of course. And to help us cover these matches, we once more have returned to the show. Very excited to bring him back in. Jake, on deck once more with us, buddy. How you doing, man? Good to have you back.
I'm good. It's good to be back on the show. I'm excited for, as you mentioned, European Deadlock being, I would say, the most competitive region right now with so many strong teams. I feel like more than anywhere else, this is the region that's up for grabs. One team can win, one match one day, and then next week things could all shift because the meta is so competitive. These drafts really count for a lot here. So I'm curious to see what the hero prioritization looks like this week.
And what's crazy about that is, Jake, is that Virtus Pro has been the team at the moment to have the longest win streak in EU. You're talking about any team can win on any given day. 3 weeks is the longest streak in EU, which is ridiculous compared to, 12 in North America.
I feel like that one won't be broken for quite a while.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, finally had that legitimately broken last week, which is great. Which really makes, I mean, the NA portion of the show is also going to be spicy, guys, because there's a lot to discuss over there in terms of how teams have shuffled up in the aftermath of last week. But let's dive a little bit more into this matchup. Let's have a closer look at both of these teams respectively, because obviously, like, one win, if you're not super familiar with this team, you will probably recognize, one of their players in Zanya, but they are overseas Zanya, Nth Dream's flammable Xenon player. Zanya, I think, was an Apex. Was it Apex Pro? Yeah, if I'm not mistaken. Alongside a lot of like Prestis also was as well. Parivision, of course, Play With Me, Saf, Prestis, Taz, Litz, and together. This Parivision team, I mean, we really felt last week, in last week's DFN, that these guys were primed to take it all, but it didn't quite go that way.
I mean, Parivision, I think, is one of the most unconventional teams in Europe when it comes to the drafts and the way they prioritize, using heroes like Hayes that almost nobody else really brings to bear. And I think Play With Me's flexibility allows him to kind of be that centerpiece for the team, always finding a way into the draft, into one of these like late game hyper carries. Does make them maybe predictable in a sense that this guy's going to be like on that late game hero, but well, so is everybody else. Everybody needs that late game physical carry. So I think a lot of pressure on Play With Me to have the drafts kind of revolve around him as they do, but Parivision just made it work before.
Surely they're not still on the Hayes train, Jason. Looking back at their matches in the one-win tournament, it doesn't look like they even tried to sort of pick that at all.
Well, it's something I'm going to get into in a little bit of time, actually. It's going to be after our little 1v1, if we could hold off on that topic for now. Because looking over at one on the other side of this, they did have a roster change. It seems Fluoride was taken out of the team who played Viscus last time we saw him, and Playa is going to be substituting in. And I kind of want to point out Fluoride in particular, because like Viscus, we saw a lot of great Viscus play out of him in particular, but we saw them also rocking with overseas on a Greytown, which in the last like 1-2 weeks, we've seen so much Greytown. Saf in particular, thinking about him last week up against Pojali Scumbria, absolutely decimating them with his 1,400 charge shots. I'm just really interested to see how they're going to play this out with the picks, because as Jake did mention, like Play With Me, we see him on Hayes so often, a little too often, I would say, when we look at the numbers.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Parivision, conversely, have really been valuing the Grey Talon by the looks of things. A lot of their picks have featured that coming up first. So they're still trying to lock down that particular hero. I'm curious if that carries over. If you're just sort of joining us after a couple of weeks, we haven't any huge changes in terms of patches here with Deadlock. The last, I think, was he's like back on the 12th, so we've had about a week. We've sort of stabilized here, where like Sinclair was a little bit better. There were some minor changes to Holiday around the board, but nothing that was too mediocre. Also, Calico got a slight nerf, but we're still seeing a ton of Calico play at the moment. Some of the damage, or the cooldown rather, of her return to Shadows, and that ultimate's been looked at, but it's still so powerful that you get a nuke on the way out, a nuke on the way back in, with that sort of untargetability in between. Jake, she still seems to be ubiquitous.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a real priority right now for some of these heroes that can not only frontline, but that can stay in after the start of the initiation. So in NA, we've seen a lot of Shiv. EU, it's become a lot less popular, but across both regions in Deadlock Fight Night, it's been the Yamato, the Calico. Viscus, I think, can sort of be a proxy for that role as well, in his ultimate. And then ability to just lead the charge in, get vision on opposing players, scout out any kind of a hiding play, and be able to live and continue to participate in the fight. Really, I think, gets a lot of draft priority right now, because that's, I think, really the key in these late game fights in Deadlock, is that you're scouting your opponent's position, not just fighting with your like raw net worth advantage, but really being in strong positions, playing into that shooter aspect of the game, that you can actually just deathmatch well, because you're positioned in a way to fight well against the opponents.
Also let you come back, right? Like it's not so predicated on how many souls you have as a team, so you can fight from behind in theory if you pick these really good engagements.
I think the draft between these two teams is going to be just insanely interesting, because Yamato is a very high priority between the two. Ivy's a very high priority. Mirage has become a very high priority, as well as Grey Talon. So looking like forward into the draft when we get there, I think it's going to be really interesting to see who's able to secure what early on. And then thinking about later on today, like with Virtus Pro waiting in the sidelines, we saw Virtus Pro, be vulnerable. We saw when Geist was taken away from them. When Dimov couldn't play it, or Mikhail S, or whoever it might be, they really started to struggle. So I'm kind of like hoping that kind of storyline continues, because I know Geist is still going to be a high priority pick for any team out there.
Let's get our Mo and or rather our Mo 1v1s out of the way, of course. For side selection, folks, one win at Parivision will be fighting in a best of one. The winner will have the chance to take on a Virtus Pro, and it's Empty Dreams and Saf that are, oh my god, the ladder getting absolutely bollocked over there. Jeez. It's tough out there for Parivision. My goodness.
The most one-sided 1v1 we've had.
That's a bit rough. So Empty Dreams, and of course, one win will be getting to select side here, and that means our draft shouldn't be too far away. Again, I mean, looking at these two teams probably played in the groups, I want to say, of the one-win Bombshell, but yeah, we saw them enter in the lower bracket through the playoffs, and they eventually fell to Virtus Pro after taking down, in fairness, Podula's Cumbria. So you know, this one-win team definitely, I think, is a pretty decent pick to bring here to our fight night.
I thought we were supposed to have a graphic before this that I made today to be shown, but I guess we'll just go to the draft instead, and maybe we can look at it later on. I spent all that hard time making it. Okay, we can run it here. So let's see. You know what? We'll delay the draft because I wanted to bring this up in particular. And in this head-to-head, I want to take a look at, like, Play With Me in particular. For me, and we brought him up earlier on, so I kind of wanted to save it to have this graphic to look at. He's, for me, like one of the linchpins of the team. And looking at his pick history, it is disgusting. Why has this man played Haze 10 times and he's won only 3 times on it when he is undefeated, albeit it's only 4 games played, on his Wraith? I wanted to focus on things like objective damage per minute because on his Wraith, this is like when we saw him force teams to build ethereal shift against him. And then he built Curse because the game went on long enough and he was still able to 1v1 anyone and apply that constant pressure. His Haze, it's been read into, it's been figured out by too many teams, and he is just losing games constantly on this. Objective damage obviously not going to be necessarily as high when it comes to Haze because you want to be focused more on team fights, but even his kill participation is lower than his Wraith. I want to see him broaden his pool. If I'm going to be very harsh on players like Listic of, you know, getting a deeper pool than just your Abrams, and he's successfully been able to do so with the likes of Calico, Play With Me has to do that if Parivision want to be back on top. He's played Wraith 4 times, which is his second most played hero, Infernus 3 times, Mirage 3 times. Infernus 33% win rate, Mirage 100% win rate. So for me, Parivision, get this man comfortable, get him on something that he can play. And I think Parivision become a completely different team if you're able to do something like that. And then Play With Me, of course, man, you got to broaden your pool a little bit more because you're just lackluster to the player we saw weeks and weeks ago having massive impact here in the EU.
And something to bear in mind as we head into the draft here. Play With Me also, 3 games of Mirage. They've managed to win out all of those, and they've also got a decent Calico game in recent history. So we made them restart the draft just so Jace could show his graphic. This is how nice our teams are, by the way.
Sure.
I think Wraith just offers such a more flexible play style where Haze is like, you kind of are all in on this like snowballing, invis entry into the team fights and then like finding big value off the ultimate to snowball or just getting individual pickoffs, where I feel like this Wraith play style of being a long range backliner that deploys the lift to telekinesis really only when necessary. It's not, you're not initiating usually with the skill, but more often just poking and prodding from range. It's just such a powerful tool to have in the kit. You have the option to full commit and force onto one target, much the way Haze can with the sleep, but you also are I think much stronger than Haze playing range and just poking, pressuring objectives, taking down towers and guardians. And so I think Wraith just has been a super high prio pick. Interesting to see the Bebop ban first. Could just be like a comfort ban. You just don't want to deal with the X factor that Bebop certainly provides. Yeah, I'm curious to see if one with a really big on the Bebop play. I don't think we've seen that from them, of course. We've only seen them once here in DFN, so we'll see. Paradox, though, much more of an expected ban. I also think on the like the haste topic last week, we talked about this a lot, that there was a shift away from those like late game hyper carries, we'll call them, those heroes that require such heavy investment to really start to take over the game, and more towards like the dynamic early to mid game, high roam, good gank potential, good skirmishing heroes that can actually sort of hit their stride much earlier on in the game. And we've got a Sync player already. All right. Wow. Yeah, I mean, we saw like Seven in particular, I think, is one like hero that's definitely going to stand out. We did see Virtus Pro play it with Listic and not with Zergy. And he did play it in a much different build order. He didn't go for the ball build. He went for more of the 3 build and then the ultimate as well. So he could just really be a nuisance. And he had such massive impact. So I think maybe we'll see Seven played a little bit more. But the Sinclair being picked up, I'm not too surprised, because in my head, I think Sinclair was like Parivision were one of the few teams who actually actively played him in the beginning. I mean, the potential for Sinclair to like full combo you with the Hex and just have a ton of team follow up is pretty insane in terms of like the initial pickoff. But I am a little bit worried, like in the later game team fights, can you actually get that single target burst that you want to? Whereas something like a Wraith, I think, is a very solid opener. And with the second pick to follow it up, I think OneWin have already started off the draft really well in my eyes. I'm curious to see what kind of build we get from Sinclair, where he elects to optimize, because I do think these new heroes aren't fully understood just yet. Like, people are still innovating, still finding the best builds and the best emphasis.
I think he should be support, or more supporty, to be honest. A lot of the people I'm talking to are saying he plays a much better support than he does like a carry when we first saw him. But what's kind of weird about him is I know like Ivy is going to be definitely a heavily contested pick between these two. I'm also wondering who's going to be playing Sinclair on that side. But also, why go for Sinclair, like you're talking about, over someone like Wraith, who like have such great success within Parivision?
Yeah, obviously it's interesting to discuss like what you kind of give up if you are just taking Sinclair, or you're prioritizing it that highly, considering you've also, I'm also looking to see like what is in Parivision's game plan that necessitated the banning of Bebop, or whether it was just a not wanting to deal with it in general thing. Holiday, obviously, even though she's getting, tweaked a little bit, we saw her in NA just be very powerful, very impactful in some cases. She's been referred to sometimes as like a budget paradox, but there are some games where she's able to absolutely take them over here.
I think
I'm seeing Lady Geist here at pick order 3. Now, we see a ton of guys from this Parivision team, in fairness, but picked a little later than in some of their other games.
I think it was Tass that played Holiday versus Virtus Pro last week, and he just was ridiculous in his ganks. Like, he was really spot on. The lassos or the lassos as well, depending on where region of the world you're from, apparently.
No, it's just wrong to say lasso. This is not correct.
But so just really quick on the Sinclair, though, I did see a video today, and I don't know if it was outdated, but apparently the damage amp from his Hex doesn't work for other players. It only works for you at the moment. So that whole like ability of amping your team's damage on the person that's hexed, if it's technically true right now, that video is correct, then it doesn't even work. So if that was like a route they wanted to go, it's not really going to pay off much more than just CCing someone for a little bit.
Which would incentivize, like, because the damage amp of your Hex actually scales off of your spirit power to some degree, right? So there was a reason to invest in some spirit items here and there, just for the flat stats maybe, but yeah, that might not be an issue.
I mean,
Rescue Beam with his 2 works insanely well if you can time it correctly. You can get someone so far out of a fight if you use it. I'm
really liking this Mo and Krill pick relatively early for OneWin team because of the incredible value in the draft at this point on pickoff, with Paradox, Bebop banned, Holiday already picked. There's not really too many options left in the hero pool for these like pickoff initiators. So I like that OneWin grabbed this Mo Krill before the ban. They go with the Calico ban for themselves, dealing with one of the most difficult heroes in the game to initiate on. Responsibly, the Kelvin ban comes in. Curious to see if a Viscus doesn't come out here for OneWin, more so to just like block it from Parivision, who I think could want it as a save for Mo Krill, Wraith, Mirage. I mean, like, all 3 of these heroes have a strong disable that you can save with the cube, and they don't like being stunned, generally speaking. So I think a Viscus could fit in really nicely here. Maybe Ivy as well, giving a little bit more of that objective pressure and stacking the global presence that the team already offers with Mirage.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm curious about is like,
oh, Talon too.
I think that's a steal. Like, Parivision like to play this Talon as well. I also think like Parivision, probably Jason, looking at a Warden here at some point in this. I mean,
they're lacking good damage right now in my head. Like, you have pick potential of Holiday. Sinclair can obviously be like a turnaround potential. Right now, I don't see a great ultimate for him to steal just yet in any of these fights, which is kind of why I'm curious what he was picked right off the bat. For me, he's more of a responsive pick, unless you have a very set plan in mind. But if we see Parivision pick Ivy, which would be an ideal situation to take it away from OneWin, then you're overloaded on more of like your supporty kind of play. So they need some like hard front damage in my eyes still. And I'm also surprised to see Yamato get this far into the picks, and obviously with Mo Krill on the enemy team, but to see it this late in is something really kind of new this week.
You've got the bog potential as well here between Lady Geist and Ivy. Especially if Sinclair has like an Alk Fire, you can just make those sort of close quarter fights pretty dangerous. Grey Talon gets to operate outside of that most of the time though, so you might consider other ways to try and neutralize him a little bit. He's the pocket, so wow, like you have a lot of like AoE coverage.
Backline kill threat, I think, to like have a hero that has mobility like Pocket, getting on top of Grey Talon, even though she plays so deep in the backline, right, with this incredible mobility that Pocket can offer. I think OneWin team need to find some support now, pretty much. That's kind of all they're waiting on. Maybe an initiator to help Mo, something like I still think Viscous Ivy is like a good finisher here for OneWin team.
But for Parivision, they're so spirit heavy. They're not really rocking too much gun damage. So if like Warden, which we're assuming it's going to be play with me, falls behind, they're massively going to be lacking in the gun damage they're going to need later on.
Yeah, that's a symptom. I mean, that's a symptom of them not having late game, like, like farm carry, like Infernus, and also not.
What's the play with me hero for Parivision right now? I think that's it could be Infernus. I mean, I think that's like a decent one, but like you guys mentioned, they're very heavy on the spirit damage. Getting Yamato to be able to naturally purge Pocket Ultimate and Infernus Ultimate. I mean, debuff reducer is going to be huge value.
Jeez, don't tell me we actually have to go for Haze here.
Was that Ivy we heard? I didn't see the picture.
Yeah, it's Ivy.
So Ivy will be picked up for 1 win. Can't do the blind casting yet in Deadlock, but
interesting that Viscous is so low prio from being first picked a ton a couple weeks ago to now potentially being ignored this draft. I mean, I think Parivision could finish with it, but you guys are right. I mean, I feel like one more proper gun damage late game hero seems natural with Holiday Sinclair is, I think, pretty decent as far as supporting.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely got the
I still do need the initiator.
Okay, this is really interesting. So this might be a play with me Warden. Potentially, as we've seen them flex over in that direction. So you've got plenty of like support item caddies in between Holiday and Sinclair, and like good roaming in general. Like Pocket gives you that. Holiday gets around the map pretty nicely. The Lash obviously is going to be super active. The lanes seem fine, realistically, right? We'll see if like Lash can actually get out of lane if they don't get punished too hard, because you have disgusting solo laners on the one side.
Could just be Geist Pocket solos, I would think.
Yep. Okay.
I feel like Lash probably won't solo. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think on
We've
this,
seen it in NA sometimes. Like I think Deathy's done it on occasion, and it
hasn't looked good to me. Lash has so much natural AOE. Feels like he kind of wants to be a duo laner from my perspective, and a little bit more roaming potential. But 1-win team, I mean, the global presence is really huge here, right? You've got Ivy and Great Talon, who are like proxy global presence with their ultimates, allowing them to participate in fights across the map, and then of course Mirage. So Mo and Krill and Wraith, I mean, these two heroes can be like roaming and hunting. Yamato can be opening fights with the ultimate, and what looks bad could really turn around quickly against Parivision if they're caught flat-footed by these ultimate participation from Geist, or rather from Great Talon and Ivy.
I think 1 would have a stronger comp for sure in my eyes. Honestly, with what we're seeing, because the Mo and Krill Great Talon combo can be ridiculous. You lock someone down with the combo, then you hit him with a power shot. Like that person's most likely gonna die, especially if you get to soft levels of Fed on Great Talon. And on Parivision side, like, yeah, you do have the Lash for an engagement. I mean, we've got to think about what is there to stop him from engaging. Mo and Krill.
It's just going to be items, right? Realistically, it's got to be the slowing hexes and the knockdowns and things of that nature. I guess you have the Wraith ultimate, but you probably need to set that up with something like a slowing hex or a knockdown first. Yeah, I mean, Parivision to me strikes me as a snowball comp. Like they've got the pick off from Holiday and Sinclair, Lash as well. Pocket can dive on backlines, initiate, start fights off pretty well. But Warden and Geist need to keep that foot on the gas pedal, right? The moment they start backing off and playing a slow, long-range poke game, they're just going to get annihilated. Wraith, Mirage, Yamato, Great Talon, they have such better range poke on 1-man team and really strong pickoff. So Parivision need to get this game into like kind of a high numbers, mega death balling early game situation. Maybe not early, but like once we get to like 15, 20, 30 minutes, that's where we need to see big team fights that lead to mid bosses that really constrict the map on 1-win team. Because I think if 1-win team get like a map presence lead, they are going to get kind of out of control just off the back of these split engagements turning to their advantage with global presence.
The outer lanes are going to be really interesting. Like Parivision are going to have like Lash and Holiday moving outward a lot of the time to try and intervene in a lot of those solo lanes, and those are obviously really like volatile situations. Mo is going to do that obviously extremely well as well, moving out. Presumably, like we have Wraith and like Mirage and Yamato, or those kind of solo lanes. So Wraith can obviously move out to them. Mo can. So yeah, especially early, like first 10 minutes, I'm curious to see like just how much throwdown we get. Because obviously like we know the Pocket can really, and the guys can really sort of push those lane matchup pretty heavily in their favor at times, and we've seen Pockets just get out of control from getting ahead enough in lane to just barraging and insta-killing people in those fights. So Preds on Twitch, by the way, 63% of you think Parivision are going to win this one. 37% 1-win, even though we like the comp a little bit more. Just 1-win's ability to play the map feels a little more robust.
I mean, Parivision historically has probably been the more successful, the stronger team here. So maybe on just the back of that pedigree, the Twitch chat believes, which I don't hate. I mean, in the end of the day, draft helps, but you need to have that individual execution. You need to have that team play. And I think if Parivision can create that scenario where they are grouped, they are, coming from engagement to objective to engagement and really keeping the pressure on, then maybe One Win Team's global presence won't be so hard to deal with.
Of course, we'll be catching up with Jake multiple times over the course of this game to weigh in on how things are progressing. But for now, we're headed out to the Cursed Apple, folks. Overseas is going to be your Grey Talon player. And we have the Wraith of Empty Dreams playing this outside lane. So we do have the Lash in a solo lane here. Parivision have them in lane 1.
What's just really quick on the Wraith for Empty Dreams. He was so far ahead of everyone the last time they played in DFN up against Virtus Pro in damage. It was ridiculous. He had 44,000 player damage compared to the highest of 32,000 out of Zergi on the opposing team. Like, it was kind of ridiculous. So for them to have a good start, I feel like him having a good laning phase would be very important. But seeing Saf on Lash is kind of weird because this is the first time we're actually seeing Parivision play Lash. And to play it in a solo lane, I mean, well, if he does well, Deathy, take notes. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, jeez, bro. Savage. Overseas getting heavily pressured there in towards mid, and that's just Taz and Litz just with this real poke threat. Crack shot, if it's skilled into, and then Litz's ability to send that Vexing Bolt, excuse me. Yeah, Overseas just got blown up in lane.
I'm going to make this look good.
Yeah, not a good start for him. He's not going to miss out on too much CS, though, but you can just kind of see the aggression.
Bolt.
Oh, yeah, I mean, the Spectral Assistant plus the Hex, like the Hex with the launch pad, the jump pad, I should say, plus the barrel, like you're going to be stuck for a while, and you really can't underestimate like how strong the Hex is going to be, and it's going to be Litz playing Sinclair, so it's definitely going to be a support Sinclair.
I mean, again, like you, in theory, should be able to have some mobility while Hexed, considering that it gives you a move speed bonus, but yeah, those barrels are the real deal. Like early in the game, like you really rarely expect that level of burst to come off the Holiday. I mean, we were watching Overseas like 80% health. They are down at 10 a couple seconds after.
And TAS is just ridiculous last week against Virtus Pro on the Holiday. Like, insane. The ganks he pulled off, the lassos were perfect. The barrels he was hitting. You can see how low play and Overseas are already going to be in lane 2 on top of this. So Parivision, just the raw aggression and the raw presence they have in lane 2 is already forcing him to go back to base here. So if we're talking about Parivision having a strong start, well, you know what? They've got it at the moment. Absolutely.
And while Saf rage quits after, dealing with the pressure from Empty Dreams, we can bring Jake back in and talk these lanes, right? Because that's a very powerful, even the double support of Holiday and Sinclair in that lane number 2, Jake, has been laying the pressure on real thick. Look at these health bars on One Win as they stand.
Yeah, I mean, they're under a ton of pressure in the lanes, but I still think, net worth lead still even. So as much as, you are damaging health bars, you're forcing players back to base. With the early Guardian protection, in my experience, this won't matter too much unless you can convert these low health bars into kills. I could easily see Grey Talon, finding an opportunity to grab a heal right and kind of reset the lane. And I think it probably won't be too much trouble to stabilize. Like laning wise, these early damage pressure, it feels bigger than it is in my experience.
Yeah, it's too early to call, and even the first few kills that we saw happen in these lanes, Jason, doesn't really seem to have a huge impact. It's really once you start to bounce off of those into some objectives with the first Guardian, also the able to pick up, or the way you rotate around the map to snap up some of those more neutral objectives. So we'll keep an eye on that here. But so far,
I mean, I kind of agree and kind of disagree with some things Jake said, just because I'm thinking like, yeah, converting them into kills is gonna be worth way more, but also like knowing you're very low in HP means it's a lot more difficult for you, I feel like, to like confirm the souls under the Guardian, because you can see they can dive him, so it makes it last hard. I mean, missed 2 minions right there, so that lead they have is going to continually build up, and once they go back to buy, which they're doing now, it's going to translate into items, which they can then translate into those kills potentially. The Guardian, I agree, I don't think necessarily going to get it too early, but in a world that they do, like imagine being Empty Dreams over in lane 1, you're going to have so much presence on that side of the map that for you to farm and replicate that damage you did last time you're on DFN, I don't think it's gonna be very possible.
And you can see that, like, just, a couple souls here and there, like, keeps Parivision ahead by about 1k, right? And that's just a few, minions in each lane. They were able to push into One Win's tower as they were forced to back, and they were all very, very low at the time. Like, Overseas is playing very deep back behind their turret and hoping that player can actually do some of that farm for them for the time being. Vexing Bolt there will connect through the Veil. And Overseas got nuked. Tastus goes in, I think got out with the jump pad, but it's another clean kill for the Holiday.
And look at this Guardian already down to half HP, and you can see what Litz is already building too, like hollow point, extra velocity, rapid rounds. He's going very gun heavy early on. They're going to parry the Guardian And they're going to force Playa back. I mean, Playa can't contest this. He can't get the minions, the CS. He's going to have to back away and hope that they don't gank him. And I mean, Overseas is at 1.5, Playa's at 1.6 compared to the 2.7, 2.3 on Parivision's side. But someone has to help, I feel like, at some point to allow them, or maybe swap lanes or something, because what they're doing now is just not going to work out.
Right, but like, you need to get your lash out of this lane, and Saf, while doing decent in terms of keeping up in farm, is not really freed up to go. Rather, Empty Dreams rather could, I suppose, rotate over, but they themselves have an advantage that they're trying to push in order to get them farmed up. And it's important to remember their play there obviously gets nuked in lane. Burrowing doesn't make you invulnerable, just gives you that spirit and bullet armor with that extra move speed. So, they got hit by, I think, a random barrel as they were out in the open, and it was an easy pick-off. Now, though, some more attention in this lane as you can see Parivision trying to expand their influence off a winning lane here to the periphery of the map. Play with me on your screen here. Wants to just continue to push up. Parivision have these very aggressive lane pushes here.
I like this. So they go into the 1 lane to deal with Wraith, and they put their Lash, played by Saf, over in lane 2. We're going to see Last Stand come out, trying to put some pressure onto the Guardian yet again. Trying to push it forward with Play With Me, but again, just to farm some minions, just trying to keep them back. You're not really going to be able to get a kill off this. Impressive actually gets too deep, and he's the one to fall from this. But I like the change up out of Parivision here to try to keep Empty Dreams in control.
Precious, though, doesn't really want to give kill credit over to anybody there. Would like to have just organically gone down to a Guardian, but not the end of the world here. Decent pressure on that Guardian. There's the Hex coming down. Telekinesis stolen. Oh, it's tough out there, isn't it? Empty Dreams, though, is able to get enough of a distance to walk away. That is so rough. Empty Dreams didn't have that available to them as they were forced onto the back foot. So eventually that Sinclair hiding around in lane number 1 does emerge. It's going to be just, right now, a full lane switch here for Parivision.
Yeah, one of the best 1v1 ultimates in the game, and he steals it away to use it against you. And we're just seeing, like, this Holiday Sinclair combo. I don't know if it's just due to them playing it really well. I don't know if it's necessarily the heroes that are just really strong right now, but OneWin have no response for it. These two players have been able to take 2 Guardians now away from OneWin and take their lead up to 4K only 5-6 minutes in.
That is brutal stuff. And Sinclair's gone all the way over towards lane 3, so that's a big roam here from Litz, who does have the audience participation available, and there is some decent targets there in that lane. Just the Ivy there for the time being. Power Slash not quite connecting as Zania tries to weave that one through the masonry.
Bro, Mitch, look at lane 3 now. Look who's like over in lane 3. Like, Litz decided to rotate on over. I imagine we're going to see something change in that as well coming out of the rest of Parivision, but
it looks like they were hit with a decay there. Got that ultimate coming out from the Ivy as well, but Flamble just using it to get the heck out of dodge. Now, though, we're just going to go elsewhere. Parivision said, right, well, what about lane 4? Surely there's an opportunity here. There is a Yamato and a Mirage over there for 1 win, so pretty strong fighting lane, but we have 3 players for Parivision trying to abuse that player advantage. In the meantime, though, 1win see an opportunity to dive on Prestus here and get some Guardian pressure of their own. This now forces Parivision to, I guess, execute whatever plan they had in the works in lane 4, whether it will work or not. Zania goes down, so far not so bad. Taz, though, gets out of dodge as he starts to get that attention here from 1win, attempting to defend.
Looks like they're able to trade one back, though. I mean, the commitment of what they're trying to do here is get this Guardian down. 70 HP and a dream here for Taz. Tries to get under the walker and gets the kill on a player with 17 HP, and he gets away. And you know what? They kept the guard alive on top of that.
That is so... to go for a play like that with such little health there is extremely ballsy stuff. Nicely done by Taz. And that, of course, is going to punish that real push up there by player. Play with me down here in this lane number 1. So it's going to be making Zania feel pretty good. He's going to go for the Shadow Transformation. Now he sees Litz a little bit low. Going to go after the Sinclair. Oh, the copy of the Shadow Transformation. Litz is able to stay alive, and the Guardian goes to work on the Yamato. I think that's all she wrote here with that fight, but that was a spicy one. That was an affliction there from Together to get that burst up front to finish Zania off.
Just when he thought he had Litz caught, he's got a trick up his sleeve, and that magic card is going to be his own Shadow Transformation just to stay alive, and resets his cooldowns as well, which helps if you're trying to get a Hex off yet again. Obviously not back onto the Yamato, who still is CC immune. But we're seeing 2-0 in objectives for Parivision, something we're going to have to keep in mind because the lead, credit to OneWin, have been able to keep it within 4K reach, and a lot of that 4K is going to be out of the 2 Guardians in particular, but they're going for the investment on the press to see what the catch.
Okay, it's going to be a tough escape, I would say. Power Shot that doesn't quite connect. Again, just raining those arrows down. Good damage being done. Play on your screen here. They're still looking to try and chase this pocket away. Flammable, those a little bit low. Also, players seeing better days themselves. They're trying to get away. Now, pressure coming out from behind their Guardian, though. Parivision explode from their side of the map here, and 1win again exposed for just being a little bit too deep.
TaS hits a double knockup on the Ivy onto Mo, saves Prestus's life, and they can turn around and get a kill off the back of that too. And they have a Guardian in lane 4, so they have their first flex out of the game, and they have full control of this match at the moment. But man, I really got to give respect to Litz, because like him and TaS, ignoring the fact that they dominated lane 2 and lane 1, the rotations out of them have been stupendous. Like TaS got in just in the nick of time to save Prestus's life, who was trying to solo defend lane 3. And they're doing such a great job of just denying these objectives away from 1win to really stranglehold the economy.
Jake, I mean, TaS is 5-0 right now, and they have really been able to be impactful moving outward and across the map just for some of these holiday roams.
Yeah, I mean, taking that lane win and turning it into like everyone else's lanes now being pressured by those rotations really is what I think has broken this game open for Parivision, and this is what they needed to do in this game, right? We talked about their ability to snowball down objectives. You know, with the global presence of 1win team, you need to be always on the aggressive for Parivision, but they're maintaining that very well. They've got this last stand from Wardens. Curious to see if they want to go for a quick tower pressure here and maybe get some of these final Guardians down.
We do have Litz who's turned up here as well, so 3 players in position for Parivision now. This does mean the Corset together needs to really defend on that lane number 4. There's the parry. A Kudzu bomb going to be thrown down here by 1win to try and dissuade this push up, and there's a lot of Guardian damage. And for the time being, seems like it's enough, but in situations like this, we see the attacking team like sort of cut that aggression and try and bait an overextension from the defenders.
Oh, I mean, it's over towards lane 4 at the moment. The other's actually being pushed on by 2 players. We did see Sap try to defend lane 1 by himself as a player did teleport up to lane 4, but looks like the last Guardian of the game for 1win will go down here. I mean, I really have to give credit to Parivision. I feel like not only this week, but last week, we really saw a lot more awareness when it comes to controlling these early objectives in these games. Against Virtus Pro, they did a similar thing where they denied Virtus Pro from getting their first Guardian until like 11 or 14 minutes into the game, and they already had a walker down for themselves. They're really taking the early game to the next level, and they were, for me, like one of the first teams to be able to punish buff enjoyers in the early game. They were very aggressive, and they're able to build up leads off of the back of that. Now they're just backing it up with their macro play on top of this. Parivision, I think over the span of like 2, 3, 4 weeks have really improved.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me how Jake put it. I mean, we're seeing Parivision, they are taking like a pretty dominant lane, but they're manifesting that in like map control and overall like global currency lead. Like that soul lead for them is huge. Okay. Lasso comes in, Death Slam comes in. I don't know how you're supposed to get out of this one, and yet it's like a rescue beam assisting in a huge way to get Empty Dreams out of there. Absurd stuff. So, Walker, though, still under some degree of pressure there. Parivision really starting to inch forward, but the Tornado pulls up a little bit short there for Zenon. They won't be able to get the catch they were looking for. And so, Saf's able to walk away.
Empty Dreams is so lucky. You had a lasso into a Death Slam, and the Death Slam is used in the middle of your card throw to try to get away. And it catches him back, but he still gets the reset on his cooldown to use it to just escape the nick of time. That's one of the combos I'm looking forward to. Like, I want to see Saf and Litz, if we talk about the Death Slam and the Hex combo, really pair well together, because if you follow it up with the barrel, follow it up with the Less Stand and Affliction, even the one out of Geist, like that is a lot of damage, and that is a big wombo combo potential for Parivision if you ever do get into these, you know, more skirmishy team fights.
The rescue beam from Flammable saves the day. Empty Dreams would have been a tasty morsel, especially with how far they are relative to the rest of their team. Danya here staving together off quickly with a power slash, and so there might be an opportunity to collapse on the Ivy here. I don't know if Theodore knows exactly where they are, but they're about to find out. Flammable trying to get away, and they will escape.
You know, Mitch, this is something we talked about, I think, last week. Empty Dreams, 10K, leading his team. He's pretty much dead even with like the biggest carriers right now at Parivision with TaS and Saf. But what is that 10K gonna give you unless you're there in the fights to try to win these fights? Can 1win win these engagements without him there so he can split push? I feel like a lot of weight's put on his shoulders with how this game's played out so far for him to do it all. And it's just not possible for him to do that.
Yep. Seen that. I mean, many such cases. I think of seeing a Wraith player being put in a position to have that impact like in the really early game and not have the freedom to roam around the map because they're trying to, you know, spend a lot of time in lane, farm, and also maybe they have a positive lane matchup they're really just trying to exacerbate and get them super rich. All right, first walker of the game down. That is 1win, still unable to take even a Guardian away from Parivision. They are definitely a little bit slow on the uptake and some of this macro level play. And no, they cannot get away. Together was going to try. No satchel available for them after the fact now. Prestus got hit with a spin, trying to get back out behind their Guardian. A 1-win found an opening here, a chance to come forward. Elsewhere, though, Parivision, of course, are leaning into yet another Walker. So, at best, 1 win out trading, these Guardians for Walkers, which is already not what they want to be.
I mean, that one's on very low health. Not going to go down this wave, unfortunately, for them. Looking back at that first Walker, I don't know if it was fully intentional, but I'm going to assume it was because they're much smarter players than I am. But Litz didn't sit next to Saf to have the ability to rotate to another lane if he needed to. But with him sitting back in lane 1, like just out of like line of sight of anyone else, if they did go into Saf, he'd be there to help him escape by giving him a launching point so they can have more of a clean take on that Walker. Obviously, they got it in the end, so it didn't matter. But if that was the intention, I think it was a very smart play out of them.
I think Parivision are about ready to start provoking a full-scale engagement here. That'll be why. Heroic Aura online. Obviously, that's a pretty important item to be picking up on that Warden. Hunter's Aura also coming into Prestus's repertoire. So again, these more bruisery, these closer range heroes finding those pretty key pickups. Fortitude also, the Litz there. So massive durability improvement with the Majestic Leap, of course, a core part of the Lashes kit online.
So I think the pick potential for 1-win's going to be gone here really soon. When we hit that 15-minute mark, that Urn's going to respawn. If Parivision pick it up, they have to take it to the other side of the map. That's going to be over in the building. And Parivision, I feel like you could almost force a fight there. And if not, you can push lane 3, you can push lane 4. And then lane 2 Walker is going to fall very quickly if you just, breathe on it. I kind of want to see them go for it. I want to see Parivision force a fight right now because I feel like they do have a big advantage at this stage in the game. Empty Dreams on 14k, just FYI. He is still steamrolling in souls.
Yeah, not much of a front line to stand behind, though, unfortunately. Player 9k. Xenon obviously not exactly a tank either, so good luck with that one. Zanya here's happy to fight, wants to throw down. Safter's able to get above. Divine Barrier pop now. Zanya has to Shadow Transformation, no other option. And I think Saf's happy enough with that result. They're going to try and fight this, though. And oh, buddy, together gets caught out now. The Death Slam is mandatory. Saf has to turn around and actually properly fight this, but it doesn't buy enough time for Together to get away. Now, Saf themselves, they're in deep trouble. Majestically, not quite off cooldown here. They will fall because of, I guess, an ill-informed engagement that goes wrong. They tried to disengage and maybe weren't on the same page. Either way, it looks like a flying manhole as players try to escape.
I think they were trying to get a kill on Lasagna, but didn't expect to see 2 players to go in support. I was kind of expecting Parivision to make the best of it by pushing lane 2, getting that Walker down. But instead, they actually do just back off. And now with the Urn picked up here for a 1-win, this could be exactly what they need to get back into the game. The second Urn of the match, they give them a nice little influx of souls that they're going to need here. And hopefully, for their sake, get them a little bit closer to some of these items that they're going to need to be able to win these engagements more head-on and more equal footing.
Yeah, this one's going to be uncontested. So in come the souls here for 1 win. Closing that gap to about 6k souls. Saf now is going to return over to lane number 2 and probably waste no time in looking to pressure the Mirage's position and get themselves a Walker. That is 2 Walkers now picked up. And again, still only the 1 Guardian taken by 1 win. They definitely do need to crack those piggy banks of souls across the map here to stay relevant.
I mean, it's a 6k difference. And they're behind by 5 objectives. Like, that 6k means nothing once they start picking these up. The thing is, that flex slot, I think, is what they're really starting to eye. You can see right now, overseas, he has no room to buy any other items. I'm assuming he has a decent amount of souls. So some very quick decision making has to be made of what you're going to sell and what you're going to pick up or what you're going to upgrade to. Because Parivision are just non-stop keeping the aggression on you. And with the mid-boss take here, like, they have a far superior comp to deal with this one. Also, with Zanya down, the chance of stealing is extremely low. So 1-win, you kind of have to give this away, unfortunately.
Yeah, what are your options to steal this? Like, you don't have any good ones. Maybe Flammable can airdrop and try and stun, but it's awful. Your odds are not very good. Here comes the Owl from overseas. Oh my God, you're bloody kidding me. That is wrong, player. What on earth? Off the back of the Owl from overseas and the stun from that? You've got to be kidding me.
They just blew the game. Like, right there, that was such a ridiculous comeback. Yeah, the last so cool. Hey, you get a catch on overseas. I don't really care about that because they're going to get a push on, or they had a push on lane 4. They get a Guardian in lane 1 and in lane 4, I believe it was. So they immediately get their flex slot off the back of the steal. And now with the Rejuvenator, they can afford to push here. Like, This is kind of why I hate seeing teams go for these coin flips. I mean, obviously that was a much more one-sided coin flip for Parivision than it should have ever been for one team. But man, you cannot be losing mid-boss like that because of an owl exploding.
So, okay, so they do clear the area in fairness. They go up. Man, that is bloody brilliant.
What? Can we see that
hard to
one
follow.
more time?
Yeah, we almost need that at 0.5 speed. You know what I mean?
Why didn't Saf just pop his ult? Did he get stunned from the owl, and that's why he didn't get to pop his death slam to keep play it away?
The owl
he had it up.
People.
I don't know, man. That was
so easy to underestimate the range from the owl because obviously the model of the owl is so small, but the radius is massive. Oh, buddy.
There's so many. I don't know. We have to see. Okay, let's see.
Yo,
Where is he? He's on the right-hand side of the screen.
Okay, so
owl comes in. He majestic leaps. He does not get stunned. Oh my gosh. Play just gets it just a little too early. And even the Hex came in like, you can't have that happen, man.
It's a solo steal. That was basically a solo steal. Obviously, credit to Overseas because the owl timing is disgusting. Oh, buddy. Okay. It is a 4K soul game now, folks. That one has crept up on us, and a lot of Rejuvenate is still on the field, obviously empowering your minions as well. So just the overall lane flow and macro perspective here for one win looks a lot more favorable. And you can see them starting to go up the map. There's another owl getting set off here, potentially to Litz. Yep, stunned up, only briefly though. They'll be fine. Alkfire is going to keep that lane shoving away from them.
So it gets them a lifeline back into the game. I'm going to give them that for sure. But we're still seeing them be very passive here. Like, they're still majority of the team on their side of the map. Even with Rejuvenator, they're trying to push lanes out. They're trying to be very careful because I think they realize, like, right now, even though we got the Rejuvenator, we still are outgunned. Parivision have the opportunity to get very easy catches onto our team. And if we lose like 1, 2, 3 players, like, we could be saying goodbye to some more objectives. So I can kind of respect that they're being very passive with this Rejuvenator because they realized they were extremely lucky to steal it away. But you have to have a game plan after this of like, okay, how do we take control back? We still have no walkers. They still have 2 of ours taken. Eventually, you're going to hit the point in the game where you need to be able to spend those souls with those flex slots.
All right. With one flex slot now to work with, one win can at least expand their repertoires somewhat. Not the end of the world, though. They can obviously sell some laning items to make space, but sometimes you don't want to sell your healing rights and such, but it can still be pretty relevant at this stage of the game, but when needs must. So some of those items coming through now, right? We got improved spirit here. So well, sorry, Jason, we're definitely, going for some of that raw spirit power for Zanya. Sharpshooter also getting picked up here for Empty Dream. So those T3s coming through. Diviner's Kevlar also has been obtained by Together, who is at 19k.
Yeah, so I mean, on the pocket, it's not necessarily a bad choice because you're going to probably be one of the players getting aggressive, trying to soak up some damage, especially with the affliction.
It's when you pop ult, right? It's insanely good, and you want to be in the middle of the fight when you pop ult. It's such a it goes together like PB&J.
I miss PB&J. The thing is, with that combo, I don't know I made those sounds either. I should probably explain peanut butter in Italy sucks. And if you want to buy proper peanut butter in Italy, it is ridiculously expensive. But I don't know. I want to ask him maybe about that item choice because he's not the one necessarily should be like full engaging. He should be like going off the back of Saf, who's going for the engagement. But I mean, we'll see how it's going to work out for him.
So Xenon just loses out there. Taz able to take them. I think there's more over towards the solo lane. Ethereal Shift here being used. Zanya just wanted to see what was kind of happening there. It only looked like the Mo and Krill for the most part was with them. So yeah, player going to back up. Everyone converging here over this potential turn-in location. Parivision want to take this urn back. Let's see if they can. Flammable. Yep, into the lasso, folks. There's a combo going down, though, as well. It doesn't look like player was able to lock whoever that was down for very long, though. This fight is all happening, by the way, over the Walker. Very normal, very well-adjusted, reasonable positioning for this. So that Death Slam, though, is going to lay player out. That is one win, fighting underneath their own Walker, losing all 3 players in that fight, and they now have to look around from the periphery with half their team left. Saf picked off, but these walkers are going to get blown up.
And they're going to get the urn, I believe, off this too. Yeah, Press is going to pick it up and immediately run away. And the thing was, the timing of that fight too, Rejuvenator was gone for one win. So you're not going to be able to respawn back in quickly. This means a lot of objectives around the map, or a lot of, I guess, the jungle camps will be taken. The urn obviously off the back of that. And the thing is, they had all their lanes pushed for Parivision, that they could afford to kind of stay in that location to deny the urn turn-in. One would take way too long to shove one of these lanes out for them to actually be able to do anything to kind of punish the presence out of Parivision near the urn turn-in. So again, really, I mean, even with Parivision losing the mid-boss, it's still a master class, I'd say, of the macro play right now.
Yeah, I mean, we'll check in with Jake here and get some thoughts, but I think the things that, you know, got Parivision in the lead in the first place have also allowed them to regain it after that unfortunate steal. Before we do that, though, play with me. Getting caught out, getting given a Divine Barrier. Now it's Tass trying to come in. Cold front out, hit with a Hurricane, though. Trying to run interference here, but playing with me, and it's worked beautifully. Saf arrives here on the lash, at least finds one. Play with me eventually falls, but this is about to be a no-holds-barred brawl over in lane number 1, folks. There is a real chase underway here, and Empty Dreams knows it. Able to dash away. And things should cool off for a moment. But Jake, Parivision now have that 15k soul lead, excuse me.
Yeah, it's a good spot to be. That last fight under the walker was really well played. However, I do feel like the fact that Empty Dreams grabbed a pick up there, I mean, like, he still has the potential to hard carry this game. I mean, there really isn't much room for error, to be clear, for the Wraith. Like, a couple deaths on Wraith, and I think it will be game. But in the end, they still have the damage to get kills. So if Wraith can come into these fights and they can defend the base well, with mid-boss down for just a little bit longer, I feel like there's still a window here for one-win team, but it is rapidly closing. Parivision tightening the news really effectively.
And of course, Overseas will be back, but not until 20 seconds after this mid-boss spawn. So if Parivision want to time it, they can obviously start mid-boss as soon as it comes up. They've obviously kept track of it. And yeah, all of one-win are headed back over towards base here. So it's going to be very, very difficult. We'll see Player. He was the one with the Warp Stone that came in and stole it last time. Overseas is not here to use an owl to potentially steal it away, but Parivision weren't that serious about it. I think they spotted them all in this lane 3, and they're going to dive on them. They're very dead. Extremely.
Yeah, that's understandable. I like the response out of one-win. Continue to push on lane 1. You can see we do have Prestus and Play With Me behind them in the lane as they teleported over to deal with this. But I think they'd be okay to give up one walker. It's the second walker they don't want to give away, which is currently being pushed on by Empty Dreams. Rejuvenator is going to fall. Actually, they're pushing 3 lanes at once, if you can see it. So they're going to get a second walker for sure here, as they do get a teleport out of Zanya over to lane 4.
Okay,
I mean, a little bit of a macro misplay, I'd say, out of Parivision here. They just give up a lot around the map for a Rejuvenator.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, there's something to be said for getting those lanes set up and pushing before you try and contest this objective here. I think they jumped the gun because they might have wanted to go for it while the Grey Talon was still out of the game. Still, here's Lasso. Okay, Stone Idol. I think Flamable just wanted to send a message there. Message received. You are still headed back towards your fountain, though, sir.
You know, on the topic of Empty Dreams, I mean, 31k, he's been farming constantly. He's doing a fantastic job. But I do kind of think back in my head to, was it Jamside on Wraith up against Saf on the Grey Talon? And the front line that Jamside has, they fell over so quickly. They died so fast that the souls he built up, he couldn't translate into damage. And with the pick potential of Parivision are pulling off and catching up players constantly like this, he's not really going to be able to, I think, get too much damage in. Parivision are just not shy at all about getting aggressive. I
love Tass's Holiday. It is so sick. Yeah, they basically try and time the landing off the jump pad to coincide with the expiry of the ethereal shift. Like, they basically time it down to the very second to get that kill. Tass had no business taking that fight there. There's like nothing to do. There's like a player in ETH shift. The rest of the one-win team like backed up already. He's like, no. I'm going to take this fight. I'm going to try and win it, which is impressive stuff. All right, so again, some important items coming on. Crucially, improved spirit armor here. So
not again.
Empty Dreams. Yeah, and this is obviously the person you want to catch, right? That's that Wraith. Ethereal shift. That's all well and good. Here's that telekinesis now coming out, but Taz is big chilling. Has that Divine Barrier, give it over. And there goes Empty Dreams. There's the carry for one win that's been neutralized here. And spoilers, it doesn't get much better here for one win now. Obviously, they've got no objectives to lose off the back of this outside of their entire base, but that also might be the risk. Parivision has to be careful. A little bit low. 3 or 4 of them actually do get chunked down in that fight. Keep that rejuve buff, of course, and make good use of it here. This is a cleanup for Prestige if I've ever seen one.
I mean, ZP's been watching in game for us, and he has been putting out some ridiculous numbers. Prestus in particular, I'm talking about here. I can't wait to see his player damage at the end of this game, because it is going to be ridiculously high. And the thing is, even though they lost Task because he got aggressive, they're still continuing to push through. They have the Rejuvenator, so Task can be enjoying in just a few seconds. They're going to get the second shrine here, Mitch, and of course the Patron. But I imagine off of that, they're going to back away, and I think we might see a delay until the next bid boss comes up.
Yeah. All right, well, this is good looks here from Prestus. Yeah, someone who's... I mean, Parivision are really prioritizing this great talent pick, and you can see why. I don't think anyone is making use of her quite like they are lately. And we got a pause here called by Xenon. And we'll wait to see what that is, because obviously no one is apparently sort of disconnected. But we have a knocked Patron. We still have Rejuvenator active. And at this time for Parivision, the lanes are pushed very well in their direction. So there's nothing to worry about. Lose the objectives off the back of this. And Jake, as good as OneWin have done, I think like when their second mid-boss take is happening, I can see them identify a great chance to like get 2 walkers, right? Which under many situations is probably worth it. But is it worth it in this case to give that second mid-boss over to Parivision, knowing how they can just go back to business and what they've been doing with it already if you allow them to?
Yeah, I mean, the mid boss, it hurts to give up, but at the same time, you're opening up a flex slot that's really valuable at this stage in the game. I think, honestly, that last fight was incredibly close. Like, Parivision had, I think, 3-4 players at sub 10% HP that could have easily been kills. I think the biggest factor was that TAS was able to initiate on Empty Dreams, right? If this Wraith gets initiated on and can't deal the damage that she wants to deal, she's in real trouble here. Yamato caught no ultimate. I mean, just totally unable to fight. And TAS is just kind of running rampant on them right now, catching player after player.
And that was after TAS lassoed the Yamato. They just obviously shrugged it off with the ethereal shift. It just didn't matter. Zaf going to go down here, though. Overseas sets that one up with an owl. Zaf also falling, so Parivision have to be careful. One we know all about, overextending into trying to kill the patron and losing the game as a result of it. Trust me, they're masters at it by now. And Parivision obviously down to 4. Got to be careful. Flammable has been removed. Again, the Geist is scary. I'd be scared of Prestus here, but they're in a losing situation against far too many opponents, and eventually they're brought down. It's a lot of bunny rabbits there.
Yeah, a little bit of cockiness out of Parivision. I think TAS, he got stunned as he was falling into the pit and then just got bursted off of that one. The weird thing is with Parivision, they're not setting up for any wombo combos, if you've noticed, right? It's all for like individual pick potential. Normally you see a Lash, you expect like 3-4-man death slam. No, they're like, okay, let's just lasso 1 and confirm the kill. Let's just death slam 1. Let's just confirm the kill. That's all they care about, because once they get that man advantage is where they hope to close out the game. And I think that's kind of similar to what Jake was talking about before. When we saw that little wonky skirmish in this area we're currently looking at now, Parivision were very close to losing that fight, actually, because they're not really trying to go for these big wombo combos, instant burst kind of plays. It's just about getting that first player down and then trying to snowball the fight from there. And if Empty Dreams can be the person to not get caught, then there is still a chance for a OneWin to win out these fights. But he has so many things to dodge is the hard part. And ethereal shift can only save you for so long.
Also, like, I just saw Phantom Strike picked up for Together. So they will get to be on Empty Dreams. They will just dive them. Colossus also taken up by Pressus. So you have this front line or these like sort of these brawlers that are really going to take that space effectively and just be a nuisance. Obviously, slowing or slowing move and dash speed of people around you is just so busted, and it's very, very powerful, of course, on the Lady Geist. So keep an eye out for Prestus, who's gotten to 34k alongside Play With Me. So this is a very tanky Parivision roster. Despite that, obviously, this was pointed out by Jake, that was still a pretty close fight early as crippling headshots been picked up for Zenon. So good damage output here still for OneWin. And apparently the chase is on, folks. Not sure really where they're headed. They might have been trying to chase player down, who is burrowing away at the moment. Okay, combo attempted. Zenon taken down. That is a copied combo.
Yes. Oh my God, that was ridiculous. I mean, we've seen him mostly copy the telekinesis, but for him to do that and just shut down together, or not together, Xenon was hilarious.
I guess the way it's designed is that you take on the Moe's model when you use the copied combo, so that looked absurd. And then like the very elegant, refined looking magician just sort of steps away back into his tailcoat after just mauling someone.
This is a crucial time. With 2 players down at both sides, mid-boss spot in 2 seconds. I mean, OneWin, they don't have Zanya there to steal it away. They do have Playa. And now coming up soon, so there's always that potential. But this is such a scary point that you don't want to be the team to throw a mid-boss here, because that can easily be a turnaround point. Instead, it looks like Play With Me is going to run the urn, but that might be go time for a OneWin to actually just try to push the mid-boss. I don't know. If you're OneWin, you have to, I think, respect this and try to get some farm in here. Like, there's really not much else you can do until everyone's alive, and then it's going to be almost a standoff at mid.
Remember, folks, all you need to take mid-boss is 1 HP at a charged melee. So keep that in mind. Together here, calling a pause. We have 2 players still out of the game right now. They're back on respawn. OneWin, though, Jake, they are keeping these fights very close. They still look really scary. Even when Empty Dreams was actually dying first in some of those fights, they're still making them very close.
Yeah, I mean, they have the damage, right? Like, so in the end, yes, Parivision a little bit more farmed, a little bit more flexibility about how they fight. But if they overstep, they absolutely will get bursted. This Wraith is putting out a ton of damage in the fights with the sharpshooter, siphon bullets as well. So, I mean, if OneWin can just keep scrapping this out and slowing the game down, they do have, some little bit of hope now, but it really is go time. Like, any fight goes against them, it's probably the game. Might have a small power play over Parivision, though, with a few seconds with the earn turn in. This could be a big risk for Parivision.
And we've got a big fight brewing. That's for sure. Overseas, though. Charge shot. Decent damage on someone that's very farmed up. Zenon is going to take the orb here. Silence, though, thrown out. That's going to be a lasso interrupted for the time being. Hard to see, but that's a combo getting thrown down. Not much Tas could have done about that now. Shadow Form going to be taken up by the Yamato, but Zhang is still going to be burst down by Play With Me. So player advantage here for Parivision now. And they're looking to push up. They want to try and end the game off this if they can have a good enough fight. I don't really know if there's anywhere Flammable can go. Now going to be chased down by Saf, who's keeping a bird's eye view of the situation. Flammable trying to game the Veil. I appreciate that, but Prestis is hitting very hard right now and is virtually unkillable to so many members of One Win. 3 players down. Jason, Parivision now. They can taste the blood in the water.
I think they can just go and win. I mean, they have 5 people left alive up against the 3, and there's no front line for them. As long as they go for a catch any sort of way, they're going to die, and they're going to have to, completely run back into spawn and back out to have anything to do with this one. Doesn't matter how farmed you are right now, Empty Dreams, you cannot 1v5 this. And the Patron is being hit.
Yep. Prestis is punching the crud out of it right now. Over the top there, you can see Saf going. I'm going to dive in here. It's tough for 1 minute. I think they've basically let this one go now. Parivision, a pretty competitive game, a lively affair, I think, in the mid game with a lot of these back and forth fights. But Parivision, despite losing the mid boss, or pardon me, having it stolen straight out from under their noses, are still able to come back into the game with just a really solid approach to the map and macro that, frankly, One Win couldn't keep up with, Jason.
Yeah, the composition, I feel like when we look at the draft alone, we were all kind of thinking One Win are going to look stronger, One Win are going to be better. But Tas and was it Litz? Yeah, who was on Sinclair, really cracked open the beginning part of that game for Parivision. The way they dealt with with lane 2, dominating that lane, taking the Guardian, moving over to lane 1 together, dominating that lane, taking the Guardian. They really create opportunities for Parivision to get such a strong early start. And likewise, it was still 6-1 in objectives at one point in the game here. Parivision had really good control from the beginning. I think the craziest thing about that was we didn't even see them pull off like a proper wombo combo at all. They were still just focused on those single picks, and then eventually from those into a win.
All right, let's bring Jake back in now as we sort of wrap this one up a little bit. I feel like the nucleus of this whole win for Parivision is that really powerful Sinclair and Holiday lane, Jake. They get ahead, they start bullying, and then they just, send both of those heroes out across the map to slant a bunch of other matchups in their favor. And all the while, Prestis is getting disgustingly fed and putting out huge damage.
Yeah, I mean, the lane is nice, and I think you got to credit them for coming out so strong and putting especially great talent on the back foot who would have loved to get that ult online early and start adding global presence of their own. But in the end, I think it's really Taz's ability to team fight throughout the game, right? Big AoE stuns, tons of these lasso catches. Felt like, the lasso accuracy was pretty high there. Felt like every time they cast, they're finding connections, turning those into meaningful kills. Think about that clutch Guardian defense on like 20 HP in that early game. Pretty insane stuff out of Tas. Looks like maybe one of our best Holiday players right now. And where Tas is where Holiday has looked like a bit of a second-rate Paradox in some other matches, this game made me kind of feel like, wow, okay, like there's a much higher skill ceiling on this Holiday than we've seen really come to bear so far. So I was really impressed by Tas. The laning stage, the mid-game rotations, and then late-game team fighting, all of it was immaculate. So I think a lot of teams are going to have to consider either stealing this Holiday away or banning it out, because that looked like a menace.
Does that, before we bring Jason in, does that put Holiday's priority for you over Paradox? Or is it just now you have 2 really good playmakers that you can't really ban out entirely?
Yeah, maybe it's more that it's getting closer. I do think Paradox is probably still the better of like the raw initiators because there's so much AoE utility denial that she offers that I think is really unique and hard to replicate. Something like the defensive capabilities of the wall and the grenades zoning people away is really nice. However, for like the pure offense and like maximum numbers of shots on goal, Holiday might be even a little bit more committed into the role, and really strong players who can make use of that jump pad stun, I think could be making the character look better and better rising up through the power rankings.
Okay. Yeah. No, I didn't know what else I was supposed to say to that one. We've seen Holiday, whether it was a gun Holiday. Well, actually, that wasn't really that great.
They were cheating.
Cheater. but he didn't even do that well on it. That's the funny thing, right? Even when he was cheating. But yeah, I think Tas has definitely been probably one of the most successful Holiday players we've had in DFN compared to EU and NA. Doesn't matter. He is the dominant player, but he also was one of the most dominant players on Paradox as well. But it's so cool to see the way he plays Holiday in his aggression, and he doesn't seem to ever play scared either. Like, he's more than willing to get aggressive, and the fact that he had the jump pad to get away to if needed, I feel like gives you a little bit more survivability than a Paradox has at some points.
Here's your player of the match presented by Intel, folks. This one, a no-brainer for us. Starting out of a really good lane, but not like, you know, Jason, you both sort of mentioned, TaZ is able to like turn that impact. Like, let's say like you're watching a Wraith, like in a side lane, get ahead, right? We've seen that happen, but sometimes they tend to stay in that lane a little bit longer, to continue to farm, right? Eventually push that Guardian down and then go. But I mean, Parivision, like TaZ and Lids got pushed out of the nest so early after that cushy start to the game. They were all over the place, and it really caused like each of those lanes almost to be pushed up so deep. Look at this, so aggressive, right? You are looking at ethereal shift, and still like TaZ is like, okay, let me time this out, bro. I'm counting in my head, puts a jump pad down, lands in, does damage, chase. And this is obviously, you notice there's improved spirit armor picked up by the Holiday, so they're quite tanky, they're very mobile. Okay, they've got the warp stone, but they don't take like rescue beam or anything. Like they obviously still want to invest in that cold front. I think that's fortitude there as well. So it's like, okay, let me be very annoying, very hard to kill, and just have this sick utility that's a general nuisance, or sometimes just a straight up fight win in itself.
I think it's really the warp stone for me that really is like, well, it turns Holiday into such a threat, because with a kinetic carbine, you can kind of predict, you can just line of sight and you're generally going to be fine. But that jump pad and being able to warp stone on top of someone, they can't really time when that stun's going to come. It makes it very difficult for you to kind of play around it. And I think we're seeing like TaZ kind of push it to the extreme. I know ZP said in the past, like once Holiday comes into the mix, we're going to see a lot of people one tricker. And I mean, I'm happy to see it, because Holiday is really the hero at the moment to crack open these fights.
So here's the stats you wanted to see. Prestis ended up with 26k hero damage. Not even the highest in the lobby, by the way, as Overseas was really able to get out of control. But again, they really shoved down a lot of those objectives very effectively, got super farmed up, so really can't ask for much more. You can see the build is so tanky for Prestis. Such a big investment towards those the durability. Same with Play With Me, I guess. Very tanky team in general.
Yeah, I actually love those builds on your like primary damage carries this game, because with all the initiation and control you have from Lash, Holiday, Pocket, all you really need from your carries is that they're going to be able to like run in and have a few seconds of survival before the stuns and control come in. So the willingness of Warden and Geist to just like frontline super aggressively really paid off this game. I mean, there were some moments where the one-win team were able to turn some fights around with well-placed lifts or combos, but in the end, for the most part, Geist and Warden were too difficult to kill, too difficult to catch, and then the pickups were always coming from Lash and Holiday. So great early game snowball out of Parivision. We've seen a lot of teams, you know, lose those early advantages and not turn lane wins into game wins, but Parivision found the way through here and kept it in control, with the exception of that one massive mid-boss steal from Overseas and Playa.
And there you have it, Parivision again. This would be a rematch of the One Win Bombshell finals, right, between Parivision and Virtus Pro now in our money match. They are there was a 3-1 result favoring Virtus Pro, where I think Virtus Pro picked 7 in all 4 of those particular maps. So I'm very excited to see if they sort of try and run that one back again. That's going to be a ton of fun. And that, of course, is going to be on the other side of the break, folks. So it's the best of 3 money match, $1,000 on the line, thanks to our friends over at Intel. Parivision versus Virtus Pro throwing down on the other side of the break. This is your Deadlock Fight Night, edition 14 for EU. We'll see you soon.